Have you ever felt like you're your own worst enemy? Like it doesn't matter how much good you do because you somehow find a way to find the negative that's in that good thing. I didn't do enough. I could have done better. You discredit all your wins and embrace the bad. Have you ever been the kind of person who writes off every positive thing that anyone ever says about you? All the praise gets shot down. I've been that way for longer than I would have liked to be. And it has everything to do with the way that our mind is wired. So, in this video, I aim to give you some more awareness and then some real life tools to use to overcome yourself. I was that guy. And then, much worse, of what I've already described. I was the guy who was always depressed, who hated himself, who wrote off all of the praise that anybody ever gave because I didn't believe in it. I felt like I was my own worst enemy. And it didn't really matter what was going on outside because I was always at war within. We don't often realize the effect that our actions, our thoughts, our words, we don't often understand how much of an effect those things have. Not to mention what we surround ourselves with, what we're doing on the daily basis, and what we're feeding our minds. I remember the first heartbreak I ever had, and I was, I don't know, 6th or 7th, no, I was sometime in high school. I remember coming back from a morning workout from football and reading the text message. That was a terrible day. From that moment on, I spiraled. I never had this feeling before, and I didn't know how to handle it. I was never the type of person who sought help. I was never the kind of guy who asked for other people to, like, what kind of advice can I get? I never asked for any of that. I always dealt with things myself, independent. I would always be off doing my own thing in my own world. The way that I coped with it was more destructive than I realized in the moment. My main thing was music. I loved music. I listened to it every single day. Always had my favorite artist. And I found this one. I remember I was listening to Chance the Rapper. It was 2 songs off of like Acid Rain or Acid Rap, whatever his album was called. But I was playing those songs on freaking repeat. Door closed, on the floor, crying to myself. I just kept sliding down the slippery slope of negativity. Then I discovered other artists, rap artists, that all they pretty much seemed to sing about or rap about was all negative, was all depressing, sad. And every day, constantly, I was over and over and over and over looping these same messages in my mind. I already felt this way, but there was more confirmation on top of it. Who knows that if I didn't dwell on all that and constantly feed my mind with that, who knows if I wouldn't have just gotten over that a lot sooner. But now, and in the recent years, I've had to deal with the repercussions, the ramifications of me doing all that. I was laying wiring in my mind that made it easier for me to feel sad and depressed, to think negative thoughts, to have a negative self-image. And I made it harder for my mind to fire in a way that is the opposite of that. It was a habit. It was my state. It's who I was, who I became. I became that person who was just depressed, who was sad, who dealt with thoughts of, taking his own life and even acted on it. Many times we don't understand what we're really doing when we're listening to this music or when we're watching certain things or when we're indulging in certain actions. If it wasn't for this music, who knows if I really would have even went down that path of using these different substances, trying these different drugs. Who knows? But those were the kind of messages that I was playing in my mind constantly. So, how do we overcome the self-loathing? How do we stop being so negative and writing off all the praise and actually being our own ally instead of our enemy? The number one step in any actionable steps or in anything is always awareness. We have to understand exactly what is going on until it's clear that, okay, this is a problem. This negative self-talk, this internal narrative that I have, this is a problem. Until we understand and recognize it, then we will never know exactly what to attack. So in my case, it was my thoughts. It was who I believed I was. My identity needed to change. Secondly, the next step we take after the awareness level is we control our inputs and we control our outputs. We control what we bring into ourselves and what we put out. Everything that we put in eventually comes out in our speech, in our actions, in our habits, ultimately our identity. We cannot afford to listen to poison, to wickedness. We can't afford to take actions that are going to lead to negative thoughts, negative feelings, and negative habits. It's hard to come back from negativity, but it's worth it. It's only difficult because we're threatening the already present wiring that we've allowed our brains to run off of. Our brain doesn't like change. It likes what we normally do because it's easy to do. Our brains want to be as efficient as possible. So it's going to be challenging at first to change the inputs and change the outputs. But that's the first hurdle. The following step after this, how do we take this in another step forward? And with a number 3 step, we have to challenge ourselves. We have to challenge ourselves and lean into the discomfort. Lean into the things that we don't want to do, but we know for a fact that they're good for us. We have to go into this with the understanding that, yeah, when I start to finally change, then the old identity that I'm breaking away from, it's going to fight back. It's going to claw at us and scream, make a scene. But when that happens, as it always does, this is something that we must recognize as a sign. The resistance is a sign to press forward, to do it anyways, to hold the line, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when we don't feel like it. Those are the most important times to do it because they're the most impactful. If we just take these 3 steps, these 3 actionables, we'll shift our identity entirely and begin to unravel what we built.